Okay, the YouTubes are telling me I'm live. So I guess I am. It's Saturday and it's a beautiful day. I've actually been outside a couple times. Which is part of why, as with most things, you start off with all kinds of things you want to do. And then, at least for me, laziness kicks in. And you don't do things. But this morning, I actually meant to do this earlier in the day because it's already, geez, after 2. Time flies. But I had some stuff to do. So the rest of the family is out of town visiting in-laws for today and tomorrow. So I'm all solo. I'm all solo, and I need to work on some stuff. But I've also, you get stuff on the brain, then you want to kind of figure it out. That's kind of where I'm at. Where I got some on the brain, I need to kind of sort it out. Let me see if I can help, help me, help you, help me. Let's get that out of there. So let me show you something. This is not particularly new, but might be. Well, it's definitely pertinent in a way. It's definitely pertinent. What is this one? Hold on a minute. Let me simplify this up. I got tabs everywhere, everywhere. Let's get some of these. You close. I want to highlight stuff. Leave there. Okay, these I think might be useful to me. This is not it. That's my other thing. Okay, let's zoom out here. Okay, here we go. This is the thing I'm talking about. Let me also view. I don't need book view. I think this is already in. Spreads, isn't it? No. Are you not? Can I not turn off book view? Doesn't want me to turn off book view. Okay. All right. Now let's see. This is what I'm looking here. So I have this. I did for this adventure, which I've had now. Oh, when did I first run it? Last year when I first ran this thing, but I was working on it previously. So you see here when you're entering a hex, every turn you roll a d6 and you'd get one of these things. And these things would be essentially your wandering couch. So it's hard to, how do I do this? Okay, one of the things I wanted to bounce. So I've been thinking about bounce, not in the sense of balance encounters and yada, 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 but balancing, making as simplified or as simple and direct a procedure for the wilderness as I can. And this adventure is I kind of designed it to be pretty simple logistically to run. And this is that reverse dungeon crawl. You're looking at the hex crawl portion. So it's a 2-part adventure in a sense. First part is a reverse dungeon crawl where you come out, hey, and I'm out. And the second part is getting back home. Okay, so the first part you escape the dungeon. Second part is like, well, come home. So it's 2 parts. This is in the second part where you're doing the part to get home, which is a hex crawl. And something that I was thinking about as I was developing this and writing it was, how can I make this as simple as possible? And oftentimes with the wilderness, maybe I should say it this way. In the dungeon, there's a pretty clockwork procedure. And a lot of modern tools, mechanics that people have adopted, make it even more clockwork. Or they just take away the clock and, if you're something like Shadow Dark where you just set a timer, you don't even have to look at the timer and worry about it till it goes off, and then you do the thing, which is your light goes out or whatever happens, right? So you got that part. But if you're still doing kind of the clockwork stuff, you have, the overloaded die and all these things, which to me, the way I read those things, my take away from that, or what I what I think makes those things kind of popular is that you have very much a sequence. Every turn, I do this thing. Every turn, I can ask the party, "What are you doing?" Or I can roll a die and say, "What are they?" Whatever. But it's I get a cadence. It's not every third turn I do this, and every fourth turn I do that, and every fifth turn I do that. Which I think is why the overloaded dice. And by overloaded die, I guess what that means, if you're not familiar with the term, is when you're rolling a die to do multiple things. So it's not just a die that says when there's a random encounter or is there a random encounter. You're saying, you know what? I'm going to have the random encounter die. I'm going to have this other thing and this other thing. Like light is a big one. Okay, I'm going to have light. I'm going to have maybe a dungeon event, and I'm going to have random encounters. But instead of rolling 3 dice or doing different turns, I'm going to do it all at once. And sometimes I don't, and different people have different experiences with them. I look at it on paper at least, and I say, I don't know if I like tying it all into one thing. I like the phasing, or I like the fact that you get time, because with an overloaded die, you could potentially get things right one after another. You could get things happening very early on. Whereas if your torch expires in 6 turns, that's an hour of time. You have an hour of time. Whereas with the overloaded die, you could have it where it goes off in the second turn, and then you can believe that unpredictability of things is a feature, or how I tend to look at it is I think it's a little bit of a bug, because I think that there are things that I think as a player, it's nice to be able to count on. It's nice to be able to say, hey, you know what? Here's the thing. Like you have, how am I trying to say this? You have a torch, and you can count on how long that torch lasts. And it's fine to me to have exceptions to that. Strange things can happen in different circumstances. But I think overall, you know what, I kind of want you to be able to count on your torches. That kind of thing, right? I want you to, like rations. Like if you're planning out for 30 days worth of rations, things can go wrong, but I'd like you to kind of I think you should have those 30 days of rations and not have it be some kind of quantum number that sometimes can work for you and sometimes will work against you. But some folks like it, and I can't argue with it. It does reduce the resource tracking to a fair degree anyway. So that's kind of the overloaded die, is basically putting all this stuff on there. So I've been looking at it like, well, can I do something different? I don't want to do an overloaded die necessarily, but I can appreciate at least what I think, and someone out there can tell me if they think differently. I can appreciate what the encounter die is trying to do, or at least what I perceive as a feature of the encounter die, which is taking a bunch of disparate mechanics potentially spread out over multiple rounds and saying, we're going to do it all at once. And I think for a referee, it's helpful in that you just have one habit you have to get into. There's one kind of flow. Every room do this, or every turn do this. And you get this nice little flow, and you don't have to worry about doing things on different turns. So I've been looking at it and like, okay, this that you're looking at on this page here, this is kind of my, how can I do that with wilderness stuff a little bit? Now, this version, it's just for creatures. So I said a minute ago, one of the things I don't love about the overloaded encounter die is it can, and there's no way of knowing because you're rolling a die and it's not weighted. I mean, the ones I've seen generally are not weighted towards one thing or another. Is you could get an encounter right away. Let's say creature, you could turn 1 in the dungeon, creature could show up. Now, normally I think it's like round 2 or something that a creature might show up if you rolled, or you would roll. No, it would be like I believe you roll for a creature every 2 turns, and then whatever you rolled, if you rolled for, yes, there is a creature wandering around, that wandering creature would show up in the next turn. So the earliest turn, wandering creatures only, not if there's, obviously there could be something somewhere, but other than that, in a dungeon, the first turn that a creature could conceivably show up, if you were unlucky, would be on turn 3. Okay. So if you're entering a dungeon, and look, I'm not saying you should always as a player say, I should have at least 2 turns before a creature shows up. And if I don't, then the referee's being mean. I don't mean that. But, you get so you get a little bit of time. You get a little time to do things for, and this sounds silly because, of course, all kinds of other stuff could happen, but right, you kind of have this kind of time frame set up. So I was trying to balance that a little bit. In the wilderness, it's even more so because, if you're going by something like BX, you're only supposed to roll once a day for your creature. Now, a lot of folks do different things. But previously, I was doing like a day and a night check. But then I started getting to, well, thinking when I was writing this in terms of how can I simplify this for a referee to run, maybe a new referee, but a referee to run and not have to kind of think about that stuff so much. So with all that kind of backstory, hey, every turn roll a die is appealing to me from its structural simplicity as a mechanic, as a procedure to tell a GM or tell a referee, roll this once a turn. Just do that. Now you do have to keep track of your turns. You have to know when your turn ends, but that's kind of, I think, a related but different problem. And I know that comes up in dungeons too. How long does a turn last? Well, that's kind of beyond the scope of this. But, basically, I go with the simplest thing was it's an action, right? The party does an action, there goes your turn. And I don't really care about how long in time you want to say that turn is, but it's, hey, that's a turn, right? So, okay, you do an action, you do a turn. I would say the same thing in Wilderness. Whatever action you take, whether it's traveling or whatever, that takes a turn. And because the scope and breadth of the Wilderness is bigger, those turns are theoretically longer in time. But, basically you can just mechanically, that's what a turn is. Party takes an action, you can roll a die, or you roll, I tend to think that as the party's discussing what they're going to do, you roll the die so that if something's happening, it kind of, it's, or you could do what the old rules or the original rules said for like a run and creature check is you roll on one turn for it to show up the next turn, however you want to do it, right? But things should happen kind of as the party's doing, not that. Anyway, that's how I look at it. Like in this, when I use 3-hour Wilderness kind of turn, so in that 3-hour window, stuff's happening. You figure that part out. Hey, okay, so you roll once a turn. I noticed that in Shadow Dark, they'll have a whole list of, you'll see a whole list of wandering or random encounters. They'll have, a D66 table. I don't know if it is a D66. Maybe it's D100. I don't know, list of things in the table. I've also noticed that I saw a screen grab, and I don't think I can find, I think it was on Reddit, but man, I'm not sure. If I can find it off screen, I'll bring it over there. A screen grab of a mythic, because I don't have Mythic Bastionland, a Mythic Bastionland Omen. Let me see if I can find it. See if I can find it. I will show because I don't have it. So I'm not going to. And you know what? I know someone's. Oh yeah, some people keep telling me there is a like a quick start. So I should probably, let me see if I can find that really quick. Mythic Bastionland. I don't know if it's called quick start or seems like maybe it is. Okay. Mythic Bastionland. There is a demo. All right, let me see if I can grab this demo copy. And hold on. I was in a browser where I'm not logged into itch. Okay, here we go. Download the quick start. Okay, here we go. All right. This is gotten. Okay, so now getting things straight again. Okay, let's see here. So we got some myths. So the myths, myth of the plague. We can zoom here. So you can see here the omens. So these myths, and I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I haven't watched. I think Chris McDowell, I probably should just have on the, see if he can come on and talk about it. Now that he's a rock, he was already a rock star, but now that he's even gone to a new level of stardom, probably have him come in and maybe just help me with it. I should probably, buy the book and stuff first. So you can see here, they have these kind of omens, right? And so as you're going through I think you just kind of run through these, and these can be triggered by different things. I think just kind of walking around in a hex, or I think doing stuff. I think they're all tied to locations. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. You kind of have this sort of thing. Well, I was working on where's my verse, so I had this, but I was basically just using it for creatures. But it has occurred to me that if I wanted to do a similar, call it an overloaded, or do, well, I haven't decided whether I'm going to roll dice or not, basically. But I could have something similar to what they're doing, not for specific omens, but for just things in a hex. And so every turn, you could basically go through some kind of similars of these. So let me, and I know this, I'm sure this is making very little, apologies if I'm making very little sense. This table that I have has, and I kind of like the way this works. I want to kind of keep this. What it has is you can see here, there's 3 columns, right? And so this is tied to a D6 table. So you would roll a die every turn, and you would go through, and it would be a trace, which is be the smallest kind of clue, right? A trace of something. And here's how it's supposed to work. When you would, there's some, hold on a minute. Let me see if I can get something else here. Hold on a second, as I'm thinking of things as I'm going through them. Hold on. Okay. Right. So what's supposed to happen is you're rolling dice. Hold on a second. Oops. Let me get my windows straightened out because I can't see something. There we go. All right. You're rolling dice, and let's say you roll a 1. You would say, okay, you hear a booming roar, right? And then you would cross that off the list. Now, if you roll, now that's turn 1, right? We'll just make her turn 1. So then turn 2 comes along, whatever the party's doing, are they moving, are they exploring, whatever. So a couple things can happen. If the party hears the booming roar and decides to track it, the next interval, you can go straight to here. Okay. That'll be one thing. And then on turn 2, you don't even have to, I would say you don't even have to do it. Well, you could do here. So basically let me simplify this. Okay. Let me go back. Turn 1, you roll 1d6. You get a 1. They hear a booming roar. Turn 1. I'm crossing it. You hear a booming roar. If they're not, so there's 2 choices. They either engage with that or they don't engage with it. So let's just start there. If they don't engage with it and they're doing other stuff, then the next turn 2, you would roll this d6 again. If you got 1 again, then they would find large feline tracks. Okay, great. Then let's assume again, they're like, nope, not doing that. All right, and if you were to roll 1d6 again and roll a 1 a third time, then you would roll like your wandering creature thing. Basically, you would do everything as if they encountered mountain lions. So what this would mean is that the first time you can encounter a creature would be if you roll the same thing on turn 3, which is pretty unlikely, right? That's whatever 1% of something. That's like rolling 18 on your 3d6 or rolling 3 on a 3d6. It's unlikely, but it could happen. But that's the earliest you can encounter something, which is on that. Whoa. 2 dogs decided to get into it on the street. What's more likely, I'll just do something, is turn 1. You roll a 1, you hear the booming roar. You decide, okay, no, we're not interested in that. We got to keep moving. Maybe we'll even try to move faster. Great. Then on turn 2, you roll a 3. You would then encounter sweet smelling perfumes. Hey, Croco. Right. And then on turn 3, maybe you would roll a 5, and then you would encounter the feeling of being watched. So what happens is after you would roll all of these, presuming you don't ever double up, then if you rolled all of these once, you would encounter all those traces, and then you start encountering the signs, and then at some point, you are gonna roll double the same number, and then you would go on to the same one. So imagine if this scenario like here 1 or 2. So then on the next thing, 1 or 2, we would encounter mountain lions, right? And of course, these can be filled. You're going by the dice. So maybe you get booming roar, then you get passing shadow, then you get large feline tracks, but then you get a kill sight. Then maybe you get the large feline tracks. Then you get whistles on the wind. Then you get the mimicked bird calls. Then you get the feeling of being watched. Then finally you get the mountain lions. And this is after, however many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that'll be after 9 turns in the in this particular area, right? And for this area, I think this is wrong. I know this is a typo. It's supposed to be 3 hexes. So you're moving around 3 hexes, and you might kind of get these, and then you would encounter the creatures. And I think this is actually a pretty cool system, if I do say so myself. I like this. I think it's, granted, and I'll probably will when I finish updating the adventure, I'll probably make a separate tracking sheet so you don't have to mark in the inside your book, but you can have a tracking sheet that you can then cross things out, and kind of go with it like that. And this is a big cup of Jamaica glass for the working man. But that's how that is meant to work. Okay, so then we go to Mythic Bastion Land. Let me just clear that off. And here they have these omens, which work in somewhat of a similar fashion, but it's linear. I don't think you're rolling, right? I don't think you roll on these. I think you're going through them in order, right? I think, is that true? To someone who knows better than I do, is that true? I suppose I could. If I go back and read how the myths work, does it say? Each myth has its omens. Yeah, always. Okay, exploring a hex. A myth's hex always reveals its next omen. Yeah, and I think there's somewhere you can get some kind of random bits. That's maybe why they have them numbered, but I think you're just supposed to go through them in order. So you would go through, and if you're exploring the hex with the omen of the plague, then you encounter 1. Next turn you encounter 2, kind of so right like that. So it makes sense to have these kind of encounters in this because the omen is building up. So you're starting off with, just to read this particular omen, right? An old coot proclaiming their dreams where foul air was choking people in their sleep and pleads for help spreading the word. And then 6 is an infected village, plague village that's, going on like that, right? So there's an escalation of tension. Croco asks, what would I do if the players want to investigate after feeling of being watched? Potential encounter with the giant? Yeah, so basically how that would work, Croco, is very easy. I don't actually write it in the adventure because I assumed it was kind of self-evident, but basically, so they're feeling watched, right? Okay. If they decide to investigate, you go to the next thing, which would be the heavy footprints. So they're investigating, and then they'd go on to here, and then they could, if they kept going, they would find the giant, would be how I would run that by the book. Because it's kind of like you're getting closer and closer to the giant, right? This is sort of, in a sense, there's a little bit of distance, right? So this is, kind of, this would be distant. You can see my spelling, sorry, but this kind of drawing with a mouse is terrible. Distance, far, and at least encounter, right? This would be like encounter range, which for the distance, for the wilderness is not like this is not ambush necessarily, but you're in encounter range basically. So it's kind of like, are you deciding to move towards the thing? If you are, you're doing it. And you can have, the thing is, you can do as a GM what you want. If you want to have a different role to see if the mountain lions start to track you and then you're here and the mountain lions get you, you can. But just kind of by default, that's what I had. And it's just, and part of it is to be very, very simple. So I am not really, so like, this is HD 2 because I'm using my hazard difficulty, right? And this is not entering into that. It's basically, I'm just kind of using for the the difficulties will tell you how long you're taking and how long things take, that kind of thing, but not for the danger factor. That danger is kind of, I'm baking it in with the creatures, so that's kind of how I'm going. But you could have this sort of thing already. You can have things different. Like if you wanted to have, again, like this is a simple roll, right? If you wanted to have a two rolls that say what's happening, then you could have one that says like, okay, they're track, they hear the roar, but then the mountain lions are right there, or things move further away, have it. But this is just kind of you're doing things. And I think it works. I think it works this pretty well. Because remember, this is an adventure. This is written for as an adventure, not necessarily as a sandbox. So I think you could, if you really enjoyed this and you wanted to build off it, you could certainly sandbox it. But the layout of this is kind of as a adventure, a non-linear one, because you are in kind of a sandbox. But the idea that you're trying to get home, you have kind of a purpose. You're doing things as opposed to we're kind of hanging out looking for adventure. So I was been wondering, looking at kind of Shadow Dark and the way, and people seem to really like their encounters. I don't. Is there a Shadow Dark quick start? I'm wondering because I could look up. I don't think I don't own. Do I own Shadow Dark? I don't know if there is one or not. There is one. Do I need to sign up for something to get it? Let's see. I wonder if someone just has the quick start, so I don't have to actually. Does somebody have it where I don't have to sign up for something to get it and I can just grab it? Oh, archive.org has it. Interesting. Okay. They're giving it away for free, so I don't feel bad doing this, but I just don't want to go through the process of signing up and stuff for right now, but let me open this up. I think I want to say this will have at least one of their, though it says players. Oh, okay, so that, oh wait, is it under gameplay? Spells. Okay. Nope, that is not. Hold on, there are more. Whoops. It says there are, what are there more files? There are more files. Okay. Oh, that's all the different types. All right, never mind. Just have to go without it. I was hoping, it says there's, hold on a minute. What does it say? If I go to the Arcane Library, it says, oh, it's a quick start set. I see. So I need the Game Master quick start. Let me see if they've got that just for quick and easies. Okay, here it is. No, that's not it. Hold on, I'm just seeing if I can get this Game Master quick start. Okay, I should have it in a moment. Okay, here we go. The Game Master quick start. Maybe this ought to have what I'm looking for. All right, so monsters, Game Master in the game. Wait, is it? No. Let's see. Lost Citadel overview. Oh, maybe they don't. Oh, wait, here we go. Yes, this is what I was looking at. So something like Shadow Dark has all these kinds of things, which some of them are encounters, or maybe they're all encounters. I mean creatures is what I mean. A mutated, so here we have a mutated cave brute explodes through a crumbling wall. A silent gelatinous cube sweeps up a corridor. Are they all like that? So here's we have one that's more of an event type thing. A groaning wall collapses the slightest touch. Um, this would be more, I guess, a feature, a chalk note on the wall. Karov will be at the Loyal Hog. There's a goblin. This is almost a social one. It could be social encounter. I guess a creature encounter more with the goblin digging in the cracks. A pit, so a trap. And basically you can go through all these. So I've been thinking I already had this, which I like, right? And then I was recently, much more recently, because this PDF I printed, did months ago. And then I had noticed this Shadow Dark style. Okay. It's not really, I don't know. I always like having things that are, if I'm going to be using this as a resource, if I'm going to be using this as a long-term resource, I don't like this style merely because at some point you just run out of ones. Now you can always just make more. I get it. Right? But I almost think I'd rather have that's where I kind of get into, just give me a small list and I'll just do those than having a long list that I potentially have to spend more time on them. I guess if I keep up on it, it doesn't make a difference if I'm replacing one, but whatever. I just kind of I can go with a small list. It's a little bit more nimble. But here you have a big list. But these are, very kind of detailed. They're really super specific. Mort the goblin, not just a goblin, a goblin digging in the cracks for grubs and beetles, but no, this specific guy, Mort, right? Or this thing is a really specific note on a wall about a guy named Karov. So they're kind of really specific. Whereas, like I said, for an adventure, this is great. If I'm doing something as a generic resource, it's a little bit less great, though. Again, you can just replace them as they come up. And then looking at Mythic Bastion land that also has these similar sorts of things, but they're not fixed to a, Shadow Darks are fixed to a type of a location type, which is a ruin, kind of like a terrain. So similar to what you might find on the out, it's basically kind of terrain based. You were in a ruin, so you encounter the stuff. These are narrative, or at least narrative in the sense that it's a plot moving forward. Each one of these omens, or these, I guess they call them omens inside of the omen, is moving the omen forward. It's kind of a front if you're using Blades in the Dark. I don't know if Blades in the Dark was first to it, but that kind of Powered by the Apocalypse sort of terminology, or use whatever other one you want, kind of almost factional in the sense that this thing is moving forward towards a conclusion. And of course, each one of these, the players can have a chance to interact with it, prevent it, do, whatever they want, but those things are happening. So I've been thinking about, well, how can I, and I guess what's got me thinking about is people seem to like this. This is kind of my ultimate takeaway is people seem to like Shadow Dark a lot. And I say seemingly, people like Shadow Dark a lot. And it's got this kind of thing. People have been very hyped on Mythic Bastion land, and they like these kind of things. I have this kind of already, which to me is a little bit, in some ways is kind of, I don't want to say my ideal, but it's very much similar to what I've been, or not similar, but is very much on a page with what I've been doing. Am I stuck? I see my live thing is kind of not. Okay, I'm not. I was looking. YouTube has a little preview when I'm in the studio view, when I'm streaming. They have a little preview, and somewhere I must have gotten trapped back because I was seeing old footage, and I was hoping that I was having an issue. Okay, what I was saying. So I really like this. So I've basically been wondering, can I do something? Fine for you, Croco. Great. Can I do something to sort of combine? Is there a way to combine these to kind of keep with my? If I was going to say I had a goal. Every turn you do something, and I mean by do something, every turn as a GM, you roll a die that can encapsulate the things you need to do for a given hex of terrain. So, in this case, I've just been doing creatures, but could I do something else? I guess for an adventure where I'm, in this case, there aren't that many hexes. If we go back and we look at my map here, it's not that many. Oh, the map's not here. Oh, yes, it is. Sorry, I thought it. The map's, this is a very small map, right? The amount of hexes I have here is super tiny. All right, so this is not a lot going on, right? So I only have to key up a few hexes. So especially, for an adventure I'm writing, having some hexes keyed up shouldn't be, you know, that's shouldn't be an issue. But I wonder for something more generic as kind of a working principle or just a good thing to do mechanically, should we have, you know, can I sort of combine some of these things together? So that's kind of what I've been thinking about. The other thing you can do is, I was thinking about it, you can have, I hesitate to use this term because it's become kind of loaded. You can kind of have quantum hexes. And here's, let me see if I can give let me think about how I can make this work. So what I've been thinking about is a couple things. You have I haven't decided on what term I want to use right now. I'm just going to call them a region. We don't have a lot of terms in English, I think, for different. I mean, we kind of do, we kind of don't. Like, I'm thinking about if I want to have a region as like your region map, and then I want to talk about areas in the region, I guess I could just use the term area. But I've been trying to think of different words. I've come up with a reach, which I think is kind of cool, which has kind of, and I like the antiquated, the kind of more archaic word. So reach, a stretch is another one. Because I think it's different words. Any case, let's say let's talk about Sherwood Forest, right? You have Sherwood Forest. Should I open up Worldographer to do this? Maybe. Anything bad gonna happen? This might be. Hold on a minute. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Oh, that's kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah. Go with it. Because I don't really care. Close. And then, just because, why not? Okay. Oh, there we got a lot, but I'm gonna go even deeper. Let's just go, you know, whatever. It's Saturday. I got nothing to do. Well, I got plenty of things to do, but I'm doing this. All right, and yeah, we're just gonna go. Let's just go provincial, pal. Oh yeah. Let's generate all those crazy amounts of hexes. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. I don't know how slow this is gonna make my computer run. Hopefully it's not gonna be too onerous. All right. So you're in oh gosh. Let's see. I should probably have looked for what is this? All right, so let's just imagine I'm going to do some, what are these gray boxes? Just nothings? Just blanks? They didn't get filled in? All right, let's do we're going to do a little surgery here. We're just going to, we can leave that alone. Like that. And then, you know, we're just gonna, actually, you know what? Shoot. I like the darker color because it just offsets it a bit more. So let's just do that. And we'll just fill those in. All right, and then, yeah, we'll just leave that. Okay, so we've got, let's just call this, we're going to call this Sherwood Forest, right? We're just going to say, this is Sherwood Forest, imagining our imaginary Sherwood Forest. So this is our region, right? Yeah. Or I don't know. Yeah, we'll call it region for right now. See, this is the our now here area. All right, we're gonna call this is our Sherwood Forest. Okay, this is our Sherwood Forest area. Right, got that. Now, and I'll just, can I make a nice big fat? Can I do like a, what is this? Oh, hands-free drawing. No, I just kind of want. Yeah, this should be fine. Okay, so then let me use a different color. There we go, nice and fat. So we're going to look at, oh, no, cancel. No, I wanted fat yellow. No, can't. Why are you doing that? I don't want to make more words. How do I turn off the words? I love this tool, but oh, no. Oops. Oh, did it close on me? Oh, all right. So much for that. I love that kind of whiteboarding tool, but it's no good if it doesn't work. Can I bring it back? Is it still in my tray? I don't know where it went. It probably is, but all right. No words, only pain. Yeah, pretty much. We can go to labels. So we're going to call this. Oh, sorry. So we'll call this Sherwood Forest area. And we're going to. Is that how that works? There we go. Okay. Here's our Sherwood Forest area, right? So if we wanted to do a quantum, and here I'll just do something. If I wanted to just do something totally kind of quantum with it, let's see, snap to points on the grid. Yep. I'm just going to put, so we know exactly what we're talking about here. No, that's a huge, I don't know why they default to these massive lines. So we're coming around. And you could, I could have, I'm not trying to, this doesn't have to all be one terrain, by the way. That's just, in this case, that's just how I'm doing it. But, in general, it could be anything. So we got this area, this little spur forest here. All right, and I think we can, oh yeah, I should. There we go. Okay. So here's our Sherwood Forest area. So imagine you're exploring Sherwood Forest, and we're doing something. Let's see. Hold on. Where is make more sense with this? So let's say we're doing Sherwood Forest, and we end up with, here we go. We get this number 2, right? So this second omen is moaning in the mist, an ivory cloaked shack home to a dying old couple. Their daughter left to search for treatment, right? This is where, so we were coming to Hex, and let's just say the party is entering here. So this is B. They're entering this Hex. So we get that, right? So what we can say is, in this area of Sherwood Forest, we know that somewhere in this area, whoops, that's my work file. Somewhere in this area is an ivy cloaked shack. But we don't have to place the ivy cloaked shack until we actually roll that the ivy cloaked shack, boy, that's going to be a tongue twister for all time, shows up. So now that we've encountered it, we can be on our map if you're playing digitally, you can just do this right in kind of in Worldographer, obviously, but presuming you're playing outside, maybe you just make a note, or you just do something saying, okay, ivy cloaked shack. Yeah, that's what that is. So now, if they have to go back to the ivy cloaked shack, we know where it is. But we didn't need to know where it was necessarily before that, because they hadn't encountered it yet. And we also didn't need to hand key everything. We just know it's kind of a midpoint, right, between keying everything and keying nothing, because we're not improving the shack out of nowhere, which we could also do. That'd be fine. But, we know it's part of the framework. So really, I guess the thing I was saying is that, let's go back to something like I have in mind, right? Let's imagine we're doing this kind of thing. But let's say, because I picked Sherwood Forest for a reason, we're doing like a Robin Hood type thing. So, okay, you went to the shack. Then the next you move in here, you get you hear whistling, and like we have some things set up for Robin and his men. And the first thing maybe is, a whistle on the wind. It's not quite, a bird call, but maybe it is maybe you think it's a bird call, but it's actually Robin and his men. They're passing, they're doing their thing where they're making a and in the woods, whatever. That's kind of the first thing, right? So you get that there. Then, well, where are you going? Maybe you have an intention. Maybe you're getting lost. Whatever you do, maybe you end up in this hex, and now you get something else. And I'm just gonna for this. Let me use a different symbol, right? So now something else that's going on in Sherwood at this particular moment. I think I'll find a different symbol. I guess I'll use this one. Let me pick a different color too. Hold on a minute. Let me fix these colors because they're not showing up very well. Oh, I guess I have to select. There we go. Let me override the color and put something. There we go. Nice bright yellow. So you get Sherwood, right? That's our first one. Okay, then something else that's going on is, what's his name? Prince John, the Sheriff of Nottingham, and Sheriff of Nottingham. They're trying to track down Robin Hood, right? So we have some things with them. So now you get a Sheriff of Nottingham thing, and then maybe there's even a third faction or third thing going on. Maybe it's not even something like that. It's a place. So we know that there is, like the shack, right? We know that there's some other spot, like maybe, I don't know, that because there's also at this point, let's just say in our story, Friar Tuck's wandering around somewhere, and I don't remember I don't know. I'm not a huge lore head on Robin Hood. I'm really thinking of my first thought when I think of Robin Hood is the Errol Flynn movie from the early 30s, like 1931 or 2, whenever it is. I forget. I think he just finds I want to say that Robin's first interaction with Friar Tuck in the movie is Friar Tuck sleeping under a tree. Like he's I think he's, obviously he's, well, I don't say obvious, depending on who you picture Friar Tuck being, but he's kind of well fed. I think he's got some good food, and I think he's got some wine. Anyway, I think he's just kind of hanging out, sleeping it off. So let's say you're traveling again, and maybe this time you're over here, and then this is at kind of like, okay, you run into Friar Tuck, which is right. It's right. So if you kind of have, this would be an event of one towards an encounter, right? It would be that, to use my parlance here, a trace, let's say, of Robin Hood. Then maybe also ran to a trace of the Sheriff of Nottingham's folks. And then we just decided that for purposes of the hex crawl, it's not a wandering creature per se. You've found Friar Tuck at his lair, right? His temporary lair, which is basically him hanging out by this tree. Not maybe he's lost, he doesn't know what to do, but he's got some stuff. So he's, whatever he's doing. Or you could have it. You could hear, you can even have more of those. Well, like I hear it snoring. Okay, all right, sort of whatever. And my ultimate point is that maybe as you're going around, you do a couple more of these, and then it's not until maybe this one that you end up finding Robin Hood's camp, or something else happens before that with Robin Hood, because you've gone through this list, similar to the Omens list, where you've gone through and gotten to the, here's Robin Hood. So the couple of my takeaways here with this kind of system is that I don't need to determine where in these woods Robin Hood's camp is until now. I might at some point want to, because in any of these interactions they can go in a whole bunch of different directions. So let's say this interaction with Robin Hood's men is Little John. So you run into Little John, and you're a good negotiator, or you do whatever. So Little John doesn't try to capture you. Or maybe he does. Like, it could be go different ways, right? Maybe you run to Little John and they ambush you, and in kind of classic Robin Hood fashion, they kind of want to take your gold, and they march you to their, they blindfold you and take you to their camp, right? So, which would be then you as a GM might say, well, I'm not sure, like here they are, and okay, I'm going to say that their camp is here, but maybe I'll say their camp is there. But the point is that you can figure that out when you get to it. And You can say, okay, their camp. Now, I could have also just had, yeah, their camp is here, right? I don't know. Is it easier prep? I'm, my open kind of question is it easier in prep to kind of leave it open and say, you know what? Because you might also have a thing where they don't run into Robin Hood's camp at all. They run into some things. It ends up being more, oh, they fire Tuck. Maybe they leave him alone sleeping and they go on their way. Then maybe they have an encounter with the Sheriff of Nottingham's men or more traces of them. And then they wander, the party just kind of, we're going to put sort of how their movements are. Do I have a good, just kind of like, I see there's a dude, but I'm not trying to do a full on army guy. There's not like, they're not a footprint kind of thing, is there? Let's see. I'll just say this, right? So then does this, and then, they just kind of, they head out. And they just end up leaving like that. So part of it is kind of, you can, I guess from a prep standpoint, the benefit to me is you can prep the area of Sherwood Forest. Here's what's going on in Sherwood Forest. We've got Robin and this is their lair somewhere in here. This is their domain. In a way, you're saying, okay, Robin Hood is his domain, or maybe I would call it, I don't know, I've been thinking about using domain and dominion. Domain being where things have hard borders and whatever, other things where it's more about the controller. Maybe this I'd call it dominion because he's not trying to control all. It's not that kind of thing, but it's under his power, in a sense. Sherwood Forest is kind of under his power, so to speak. Crocus is Robin and his Robin fellows. So you can kind of prep the area, right? So here we have, if we count how many hexes are in Sherwood Forest, there's a bunch. Hey, Dave, but we're not going to prep every hex. We're going to prep this as a overall region or area. We decided the factions that are in this area, which is Robin Hood, his merry men, Sheriff of Nottingham, and whatever soldiers, militia, whatever, who he's sending out there. And there maybe you can have another faction, which is just kind of others, non-associates, which would be your sort of villagers and kind of things. So it could be the guy who's hunting in the wood, who's not supposed to, but he's got to feed his family. That's, that's a theme in a lot of the Robin Hood stuff. I think I guess in the Costner movie, I think, doesn't he save some guy who's being chased because he was hunting in taking one of the royal deer or something, right? You got the woodsman who might be chopping down a tree or two, the hunter who maybe shouldn't be there, kind of Friar Tuck who's wandering. People sort of doing their business. So you have these three factions. Of course, you can throw in some creatures, and then maybe you have some sort of events, and you can cover this area. It's interactive. It can respond to what the party's doing. But as a GM, you can be, in my case, unlike with the Omens, I think from Electric Bastion Land, I'd probably have you rolling for these initial, kind of following my formula here, rolling for whatever the initiative thing is. And then these are sort of escalations, right? You're rolling, you might have an escalation, and then you come up and do a thing. And this thing can actually be an event, can be, any of these could be, events, I guess. Something like like this, obviously, Trace, a booming roar, that's an event that happens, and then it's kind of, it's a timely thing, right? The tracks, it's more of a clue. The sweet smelling perfume, it's kind of an event, right? It's on the wind, you smell it, and then it's kind of gone. The feeling of being watched also being an event. So you can have it, any of these can be events, they can be places, which I guess the tracks would be a place in a sense of where you spot the tracks. They could be encounters. Maybe you run into a deer. Let's say they're doing the mountain lion thing, and there's a deer that runs across your path, but it's booking along, right? It's running. Okay. And whatever, I don't know what, racing, galloping, whatever it is. Poof. So that itself is a creature encounter, but it's also indicative of this other thing which happening, which is it was running away because there's a mountain lion in the area. But of course, the party doesn't know that yet. They just seen the deer race off, kind of thing. And then if you want to, you can, I think, get away with, okay, I have this wood area. I know Robin Hood's in here somewhere, but because the party might not, this is really going to come down to is how relevant is this for your campaign, whatever you're doing. And I think the Robin Hood thing is kind of interesting in that Robin Hood's men know where the camp is. Nobody else knows, right? That's the whole thing. As a sheriff of Nottingham's looking for it, he doesn't know. None of Robin Hood's men have been, let's just say, at least where we are in this example, they haven't been captured, tortured. They're not giving it up. So really, the idea is on a campaign level, if I'm playing a sandbox, I can do is I really can think about it and say, you know what? Nobody knows where Robin Hood. No one's told. No one outside of Robin Hood and his men have. Oops, I was just going to get rid of these. Have seen Robin Hood's camp and return. Nobody's been there and back yet. So where it is, you can kind of keep as an unknown kind of factor. Yeah, nobody knows where it is yet because nobody's been there and been out. So I can play it kind of loose as a GM, as the referee, and say, I don't need to place it on the map yet because nobody knows where it is yet. Now, if my whole game is about Robin Hood and his men, then it's probably a better idea for organization stuff that I know that I know where Robin Hood is. But if the game is about a whole bunch of different things, and I don't even know if my party is going to engage with Robin Hood or not, but I do know that they're going to be, that the wood at least is on their radar or in the area that we're gaming in. If our playable gaming areas, say this part of the screen on, let's just we could throw a couple of things here. Let's just, if this is kind of the area of the game, say something like that. Let's just and then because we're doing this, so why not? We're gonna do something. Let's do it right. Let's put a river in here. Yep, snap to points on the grid. Stroke type. That's fine. Border, we're going to call it, I don't want isometric river. Color, it's going to be super huge again. Let's say it. Right, so let's just say there's there's kind of a mountainous area. So let's just say it starts, I don't know, somewhere here. Comes in and kind of follows. I don't know, and then it does something, whatever. It does something like that. So I don't know that they're going to be investigating Sherwood Forest, but it's kind of in the things to do sort of thing. So I go, hey, you know what? Let's put them there. But I guess I'm thinking you can, you have to. I guess a couple things I'm thinking about. I've really been thinking about. This is not really a new thing, though. Maybe I don't know if I really talked about it so much. This idea of really looking at it instead of looking at the individual hex as our first thing, and saying a hex by hex, is to look at these things in kind of more of a broader view. Looking at it and saying, we're talking about Sherwood Forest, or we're talking about Yellowstone National Park, or we're talking about whatever a sort of an area. And then we give those things names for multiple reasons, but then oftentimes they can be because they have a feature in common, and sometimes just the fact they're close geographically, or that they've been, sealed in, like Yellowstone, it's all this one spot sealed in, but, it's got that, it refers to a specific area. So what unites that area? Well, number one, for Sherwood Forest, it's Sherwood Forest. It's a forest. And of course, there's a lot of this would be out here and it'd be kind of farmland or whatever. And then looking at saying, okay, well, we're going to call this an area. We're going to define it as some kind of unifying area. It might all be the same kind of terrain. It might be different types of terrain. There could be, a valley that's got some forest and some river and some wetlands, or whatever, but it's all one valley. So we're going to look at the valley as a whole. And then kind of going down from there, doing this sort of top-down approach that we can then cover this broad area so that we could say, okay, what do we know about Sherwood Forest? These are the creatures that live in Sherwood Forest. We got bears, we got deer, we got wolves, and then you add in your whatever fantasy creatures you want in there. Okay, we got this stuff in common. And then we have who are the factions who are active in this forest, and then also kind of like who's the power in this forest, what keeps this forest, what, because like I think of it, in the kind of fantastic sense of people talk of Sherwood Forest kind of as a thing, right? Like in the Lord of the Rings, like Mirkwood, like, ooh, Mirkwood. What makes Mirkwood Mirkwood as opposed to just some wood? What makes the old forest the old forest? What makes these things? And of course, it's because you have the presence of different creatures in there who have some kind of power that make the thing a thing as opposed to just a collection of trees. What makes Sherwood Forest different than just some other wood? Well, this is happening. And in a fantastic sense, I like to think of like there's something, if it hasn't been totally just tamed by somebody coming in and just settling it and clearing it out and basically subjugating it, then there's something here. So what is it in Sherwood Forest's case? It's Robin Hood and these merry men who that's the power there. So kind of looking at these things and then creating a list. We can create a list however long you want. And maybe you can even, I don't know if it makes sense to look at how many hexes you're covering as terms of how long your list is. Because I ideally, right, you don't want to, from a prep standpoint, I don't want to replace prepping. Let me see how many hexes did I circle here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 hexes. I'm not trying to replace individually keying up 35 hexes with necessarily making a 35, basically replacing. I'm not keying 35 hexes, but I'm keying up 35 rows on a table, which kind of ends up the same sort of thing. So, how do you mix that up? I think one, by keeping things kind of loosey-goosey, and also by that kind of quantuming it of saying like, hey, I'm not gonna worry about where in Sherwood Forest Robin's camp is, because you'll find it through these different encounters, or you'll be taken there or something else will happen. And then we'll decide if you're taken there, then we'll decide then. If you finding it through some other means, then we'll do that. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. So I'm going to say that his camp is in Sherwood Forest. Where's Robin Hood's camp? Well, everyone knows it's in Sherwood Forest. So it's in there somewhere. Where it is exactly, we'll figure it out. Krako says they've seen some games do ranges for encounters or monsters. Makes sense to do the same for faction activity. Yeah, it's just that we don't. I guess it comes down to it. If you need the specificity, then be specific. But oftentimes we don't necessarily need the specificity right away. So then, why not take advantage of? I think it's a lot easier. Basically, what I'm saying is, even if you needed to come up with 35 entries, it's a lot easier to come up with a table like this than I think keying everything. But my table would look differently. Like I would probably, what I kind of was thinking with mine is having something where you're going through and having a couple of escalations. Kind of like each one of these, in a sense, is a little mini omen table, but it's just 3. Like little mini omens. And I could even write it out like that, like Robin and his men, 1, 2, 3. The Sheriff of Nottingham's men, 1, 2, 3. Others, 1, 2, 3, kind of thing, right? And then, by having 3 times 3 times 3, right, those, it gives you a lot of options, ways of coming through things. And of course, they don't have to be like, it can be like, I'm trying to think how I would write this up. If I was going to write it up, if we come to my thing here, I started kind of writing out this idea, and then I thought, like, I really need to think it through a little bit more before I start writing it down. But imagine, let's just say we've got, here, let me just do this. So let's just do it. We got Sherwood Forest. And then we've got, it's Sherwood Forest. And let's just say, now we have factions. 1, Robin Hood and his merry men. 2. The Sheriff of Nottingham and his goons. 3. Local folk. And maybe 4, I don't know, creatures? I don't know how many to have either. And you can, this is where you can have some fun with iterating over turns. So basically, if every turn we're rolling on the table, I'm rolling a d6, is kind of my normal thing. You could have a thing where, in which, like I'm doing, is you have 3. Well, let's just keep it simple. I'm not going to worry. Let's keep it simple. So we got 4 things here. And then maybe we even have, yeah, see, this is where it gets kind of not sticky. So this is where I run into issues. Issues is not right. It's probably factions is probably not the thing I want to call this. I probably want to call it, I'm not even sure what to do. Maybe just encounters. Because I probably want to have something 5 locations and maybe 6 just strange, right? Because we're this is a fantasy version of what we're doing. So now let me make a new header here. So we could probably even, so that can even just be that could be a table, right? D6 factions, faction, creatures, which themselves could also be a faction, I guess, if we wanted to. I don't know if we have another. I'm trying to think if there's another thing there could be here. I guess we could. So yeah, let's do this. Let's do this differently. Okay. Let's see if we can do this. So we've got yeah, creatures, factions, locations. Oops. And then maybe 3, I was thinking 3, events, which could also be strange. Maybe it's easier just to go, okay, we got creatures or factions, which I guess are creatures mostly, locations, and events are sort of the three things we could have. Now we end up with, so now we have, let's see. Because I want to keep that escalation going. So I guess I need 3 columns. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I wonder if it. I don't know how this will work because I kind of want. I want to have these tracks. But let me write some stuff down because I'm going to get all kind of caught up. So let's go back to this. We're going to have events. All right, so let's put in some starter events, right? So a woodsman, I guess let's just say this, the sound of a woodsman chopping down a tree. So that's an event. So because maybe now I'm thinking of how this would work. So Because what we can say is it's not going to be perfect, but maybe it works better this way. Let me make another thing. Let's do this. So, okay, so we have, who are our factions here? We have, I know I'm typing in what I already typed in there. We have Robin Hood and his merry men. We've got the sheriff of Nottingham and his goons. We've got local folk. And then, let's see. Let's just say, oh, I don't know. What kind of creatures, what kind of forest creatures do we have? Let's pick a couple of critters. I feel like for this wood, given Robin's here, given everything, I think there's not going to be like, a dragon. Though the wood is, though our area, our mythical version of the wood, it's not like it's too super tiny. But the one thing is when this method means you could get some strange neighbors, like, oh, the dragon's right next to where Robin Hood. Like, isn't that weird? But then you have to do some thinking about. There must be some feature or reason why these two things are coexisting within 7 or 8, between almost 8 miles of each other. No, I shouldn't say that. Right, each point is probably going to within like 3 miles. I like the 3 mile hexes, which is why I'm saying 3 miles, but. Within, let's say, 3 to 5 miles. Each area of a hex is 8 something, or not 8, it's almost 8 miles. So if I'm looking at, where's the wilderness encounter table? I look in the woods. We can say there's an, I like the idea of there being a troll or an ogre in the woods. So we'll put an ogre in the woods. And then we've got an ogre. And maybe, what else could there be? Something else. Maybe a kind of animal thing do we have here? And we'll see a unicorn. Yeah, this is kind of, and then he's a unicorn, right? So we decide, excuse me, we decide that these are the factions that are going on. So now we got this idea of the encounters, that they should be a mix of creatures and factions, locations and events. And we got 35 hexes. So maybe we make, I don't want to make a 36 table. I feel like that's kind of overkill. But and the other thing is they're not going to investigate. See, the thing is, part of what I'm working on is you have 35 hexes. If the party could somehow survey everything at once, then you'd have to, if this was modern day and they could send a drone and just buzz all these things, you might feel more pressure to, oh my gosh. But even then, like, you don't see everything. That kind of, you might feel like I got to have everything explained. In this case, reasonably speaking, how many hexes could they travel through in a given day, in a given session? Hopefully you're providing there's enough meat on the bones of things that's happening, everything, that they're not going to be able to run through 35 hexes, right? And they might, probably not. And hopefully there's the stuff's going on, they're interacting with, doing things, whatever. They're heading back to town, and that you're going to have a chance to kind of refill your list if you need to, kind of thing. So we got so here we go. So we want to probably have so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, we have these factions. I don't need this anymore. We have these factions, and then we also might have, so we're events, and so there's locales, which can be something, a locale doesn't have to have a particular faction. A lot of them might. And we can have some events that have nothing to do with anything, or they might do. Like, this is kind of, it's going to be up to you. But maybe we're going to do, taking some inspiration from the myths, and Mythic Bastion land is things are going to pertain to something. You know, the party doesn't have to engage with it, but maybe we're going to go into it saying, kind of in a heightened reality sense, if you go in and you see something, it's something. You know what I mean? It's not nothing kind of thing. Though you could have something that pertains, and this is where you can get into, I think Mythic Bastion Land does this, where you go into a ruin, you might see a myth piece from somewhere else. It's not the myth that's going on. It's like, oh, it's just over there, but it's part of this ruin. You could also have some event that pertains to something else, or if you wanted to have like a lightning strike or something. You know, it's raining, lightning strike. You could have you could trigger a weather event, I suppose, if you want to, kind of thing also. And you can maybe, it'd be interesting to do a 2d6 and have somewhere where the second number is adding like a atmospheric kind of thing on top of it. So let's just keep going here though. So, all right, so we have the sound of a woodsman chopping down a tree, which would lead towards local folk, but we're not going to worry about that yet, right? So then we have, these are all these kind of traces. So now we have a bird call. Whistling bird call. After a moment. An answering call. So there you go. There's another one. This is kind of your classic sort of merry men kind of moment. So now we've done one for the ramen. We've done one for the local folk, for the sharing, for the sheriff. A set of heavy boot prints in the earth. Marching deeper, I don't know. I guess they set a trail of many heavy boot prints. Oops. This would be a sign that right, so we've got, got Robin Hood, we got the sheriff, we got Robin Hood, local folk, sheriff. Let me just make a couple more. So now, having made, if I do 6 of these, and these are all traces, in a sense, right? These are not direct encounters. Obviously, each one of these will allow the party, give space for the party to figure out if they want to engage with it or not. They don't have to. But there's 6 of them, which means the first time I roll a die, I'm getting one of these 6. And probably what you can do is, as a system, say, okay, if you get if you get the same one twice, then maybe you go up to the next round. Like you don't get that one again, you kind of go up. Or maybe we say, I see, this is where I'm kind of struggling to come up with this. Let me just make a couple more of these. Let's do this out. So I'm gonna make one for the ogre. What's a good ogre, kind of ogre-y sort of thing? A single set of very large, very deeply impressed. Do we think ogres wear shoes? Humanoid foot tracks. Let's just say that. There we go. A single set of very large, very deeply impressed humanoid foot tracks. So that's the ogre. So we'll put a glade of dazzlingly colorful flowers in blooms. This would be a sign of for me, the unicorn. Croco says no shoes. All right, I went with no shoes. You can go either way. But what do they say? Well, this particular ogre is not wearing shoes. So we have a chase. So there we have something for the unicorn. We could have more local folk kind of thing. And it will, yeah, here we go. We'll do a simple hut built out of, I don't know, what do you call it? Just like sticks? What would you call a hut that's made like a rude, I don't know, a hut just, what do you call it? Like, not driftwood, because it's not on the, what do you call just, I don't know, a simple, yeah, I guess I'll just call it a hunter's hut. I don't know, empty. I'll come, for this example purposes, I don't need to try to make it flowery. It's a hunter's kind of hut or lean-to. It's called a simple into empty, but shows sign of recent occupation. It does not abandon, but just okay. And then what else we got? So we got one for Robin Hood, one for the sheriff, a couple different local folk. Oh, I haven't done the sheriff. Oh, yes, I did. So you got a hunter, and then maybe I'm not sure. Oh, I guess it's called a quiet pool of still dark water. I don't know what the quiet pool. It might be nothing. I mean, we can have some of these go to multiple things. Maybe the ogre could show up. I don't know. I don't have a story for that. I don't have something for that. But so now we got 6 of these events. So on a 1d6, we'll get one of these, which means that at least for round 1, if we have, so I guess what I'm thinking is I can add more to this table. So let's make another 6. Add more to this table. And now I can go 7, 8. And maybe I'll just do a 2 just to keep it super simple, right? Because 10, 11, and 12, not 6, 12. So now we've got this encounter table. And, okay, so what we can do is, maybe I'll put some parentheses in here to make it a little bit easier. So this is the, this is local, right? Local folk. Or I don't need to do that because we can hear the, so let's just, well, I think I can keep track of what's what. All right, so we could say is 7, which was the woodsman chopping down the tree, the sounds of it. So we'll just say, yeah, a woodsman collecting, stacking chopped wood. I don't know. I don't know how a woodsman do it. Woodsman, sure. Arranging cut wood. How do they do it? Do they? What? Let's just say splitting cut logs. Sure. something like that. So now we get this. So that's the actual encounter with the woodsman, right? And then the second one was Robin. So let's just say that Robin and his men are a little bit less. What's the word I'm looking for? They are harder to encounter. So you can kind of have a rarity kind of thing here, or the further. So as you're in the hex, or you're in this area, we're rolling to see what you do. You can't encounter 7 unless you encounter 1 of the 1 through 6 first. Because as you roll down this list, right, you go 1, and then you would take that 1 off the board, and then that would pull the list up. So 7 would then become 6, right? So you could this list you would be marking them as they go, basically, or adding 1. Oh, whatever. But I think it's just easier just to kind of count. So you go, okay. And now maybe it works better. Actually, I mean, it might work better if you just have them next to each other. So we keep doing the 6, and then you have 6 and 6 and 6 kind of thing. And maybe end up with 18 on your list. That's basically, I'll have to play around with the thing. But right now I'm just going to run it like this. But it does mean that you could cross something else off the list and then get the woodsman, which is fine. I mean, probably what this one should really be is just a sound of chopping. Right. Reverberating sound of chopping, and then this ends up being a woodsman felling a tree with their axe. There we go. The whistling. So for Robin Hood, and the thing is, you can, and I guess the flexibility here is you can make this as long or short as you want, depending on how much you want something to be. And you can also fill it with a bunch of stuff. So let's say you're in a desert and you want things to be super rare. You could have a lot of things as just environmental, winds and sirocos and I don't know, sands. Like you could have all this stuff that essentially is a tall dune, a rocky, depending on what kind of desert it is, or even mixed in a desert, rocks and whatever. And they don't have to be people oriented, but you're not going to get, because you want the desert to have this really vast feeling, you're going to have a lot of those and then a very few other things because that's the desert. Here, this wood is pretty busy because there's a lot of things going on between Robin Hood, between the sheriff, between local folks, between the ogre and the unicorn, that maybe it feels fuller, it feels more activated. Active, not active, not activated. Well, it is activated, but it's active. So you have more stuff. But kind of as you're going through, you're kind of feeling this. But I think, if I'm doing this for a product, I'd want to have more of a generic. I feel like I'd want to have a generic thing, kind of like what I have here, right? But for a specific adventure area, I'm tailoring these things to all the things that are going on. So anyway, let me just kind of finish this up. So we had the bird call. What's another thing that kind of Robin? Oh, maybe some wooden wind chimes hanging from a tree branch. And I could also have another sound, right? So here we have wooden wind chimes. Like you look up and you see these wind chimes hanging from a tree branch, which is kind of a sign of activity, a sign also that kind of things that Robin Hood likes to do is make people think that the wood is haunted. I mean, this is being that we're playing the fantasy version, it could very well be haunted, but in this case, they're trying to keep people, stay away kind of thing. So doing that. Okay. And then, maybe for the ogre, Oh, did I miss one? What did I do? Where was the... Oh, I think I did. Somewhere around the way, I forgot my... I must have ridden over my... I'm not seeing it now, right? Where's the sheriff's men? Chopping, the bird call, very large tracks, dazzling things, simple lean-to. Yeah, I did. I did. So let me take out the simple lean-to. I can just keep as another thing anyway. And I'll put the a set of multiple sets of boot prints. Rushing into the... Yeah. Multiple set of boot prints. Stuff like that. I can dazzle up. Chimes are always fun, says Crocker. Yeah, they are. So let's see. What was that? Oh, so I put that up. So a single set of very... Oh, yeah. So a large refuse pile filled with trying to think like what bones. Oh, let's see what we come. Maybe what am I thinking of? Scraps. And refuse. The bones show evidence of being gnawed upon by very large teeth. It's a little bit enigmatic, which is fine. Because you don't know, large teeth, but the fact that it's been kind of gathered together. And then we can keep the simple lean-to. Maybe we'll move it here. We don't have to have something else for that pond. It could just be a thing. Um, 11. Let's see. An attachment of Nottingham soldiers resting by a small brook. Sure, why not? And then this could be kind of for the... I imagine the unicorn will be quite rare too. A massive tree. Towers. Massive tree. I don't know. Come up with something else. So here you have, right? So as you're going through this area, have a number of these events. The events are kind of thoughtful, but it's the way it's written, and you could probably go back and forth whether you like that you as you're going through these events, you're only rolling a d6. And this is what I was saying about the turns thing. You could do, if you wanted to, that, hey, every turn after the first, you're adding, so that the longer you're spending in, that you're starting to get to more than one. So you don't, which would mean you don't necessarily get these first ones. So the first one, you're rolling a d6. Then it's a d6 plus 1. That's a d6 plus 2. That's d6 plus 3. So that you could have this, you sort of feel an escalation of the events. Though that's really, I don't know if you need that. I don't know if I would want that. And then obviously as the referee, as you're running through this, you can kind of add more. As you know, some of them, they're going to be kind of all the time. I mean, you're going to hear chopping, and that's a daily event. People are chopping at the edges of the forest. You could also have some that maybe only occur in, this is, I think wolves will do that. Wolves, which I think I don't, if I open up, let me see, if I open up wolves, they have a similar, they have, I guess, an approach, which is, the approach is to, hold on, let me find it. It's basically they have a certain amount of they use some geography in their thing. Let me find the, where am I looking? Whoa, let's zoom out. Let's zoom. Yeah, so if we look at their encounter list in wolves, they have these. Hey, if you're within 2 hexes of this hex, the ogre lair. Now we can kind of do the reverse. What we can actually do is we can say maybe we say that the ogre lair is within 2 hexes of this location. Did I get that right? Oh, it didn't make it. Oh, I think it's supposed to be brackets. Yeah, sorry. There we go. So we could say something like this. Hey, the ogre lairs, whenever you encounter this, the ogre lair is close. It's going to be within a hex. 2 hexes of this location. Or something. You could also do that with, they can't, okay, you want to, you want to do Robin Hood's camp, we could say Robin Hood's camp will be in, because I would imagine if we're coming back to this map, for myself, if I was going to make another, let's do another border. Gosh, way too big again. Let's give a different color. Let's say if I was going to say for Robin Hood's border, maybe we say that Robin Hood's borders, it's not going to be in anything that's, it's going to be at least within, it's got to have, it's one of these. Oh, this one could be this one. Like it's not in one of the first hexes in the woods, basically. Or actually, that's not even right because it could have been. Oops. Can I undo? Something like this, actually. Oh, and I goofed up that one too. Can I? I can. I forget how to. There we go. Something like that. Like you could say, like, oh, Robin Hood's thing will always be at least 1 hex in the woods if you wanted to be. You can have some fun being kind of specific, right? Because we don't want Robin, especially if we were to, oh, let's just, because we're doing it, let's just do it. Like if I was doing this for reals, this will kind of, let me put the hills. Let's use the different hills. Oh, yeah. Classic. Just give me classic. Let's just say, and I have no idea what the terrain really is, but let's just say this is going to be all this stuff is hills. And then we've got more. farmland, or at least empty land. Croco says only worry is a lot of overlapping range bands. Well, you don't have to. It doesn't matter, Croco, actually. And the reason is because you're not dealing with all these. You're not dealing with the range bands at once. This is only if you wanted to. But this is just when you're placing Robin's thing. If you want to have a whole other range band for, okay, so the ogres. Let's just say, the ogres. I don't know. Give them. I don't want to use red again. If we want to say that the ogres are, I don't know, at the edge of the wood called over here, right? Like we're not worried about them because this will be dealt with, let's just say the ogre layer's got to be somewhere here. Okay. It's not like we're dealing with the ogres and Robin Hood and all that stuff all at once. And it's only if you want to. If you want to throw the ogres in anywhere, but maybe you want to say the ogres are only in, imagine we're doing Mirkwood and you want to have the elves of southern Mirkwood and then the spiders are the northern part of Mirkwood. So you're saying, okay, if you're in the southern half, if you're below some line, you could put a line in there, or you could even have it split into two areas, southern Mirkwood and northern Mirkwood, right? There are many ways to skin this particular cat. You could split this into multiple areas of Sherwood Forest, in which case, when you come to this area, now you're in ogre country, or you could split out another way, but you could just make these rules. And like I said, it's just a different way of doing it than they're doing it. They're just saying, hey, within 2 hexes of this, which you could easily do also. Hey, if you're within 2 hexes of 17, which would be this area here, then it's ogres. Or you could say wherever you encounter this refuse pile, the ogres lair is somewhere near there. And you could just say in an adjacent unexplored hex. Or unoccupied hex. Maybe say it So maybe you say, right. You say, here is in an adjacent unoccupied hex to this location. Something like that, right? The ogre lair is in an adjacent unoccupied hex to this location. So then if the party, and here the nice thing with this is if the party decides to investigate that and they come up with the clue or whatever that they need, or you're role playing and like, oh, I'm going to try to see if, like, there's a huge refuse spot. Do I see any tracks leading away? And it makes sense you would. So you go, yeah. Or you're going to say roll, and they do. You say, oh yeah, the tracks lead. Then you can look on your little map and say, okay, you guys were, all right. So this, you were. Or maybe I'll use white, You guys are here, so now we know that the location of the location of that's got to be one of these. And we'll say, mountains, or, they like the hills. So we'll say, oh yeah, it's here. So you just make that choice. I mean, when you're drawing it in Worldographer or something like that, yeah, you could get kind of messy, but you don't really need to. We're really doing that in the text. Whoops, wrong text. We're doing that in the text and saying, oh yeah, it's somewhere. It's somewhere in that area. So I don't need to. I can just describe it like this, and then you just got to plunk the hex where you want it to be. Like I said, it's really just the inverse. And you could do it, but you could also do it. Here's the thing. You can do it the other way too. If you want to write it more in the wolves fashion of if adjacent to this hex than this is, the difference with these are, and it's just a matter of style, is that if you don't get these, then you get nothing, which is fine. That's the other thing, right? The style part of this is okay. So here's the part of it, right? And this is why, and this is not why. Like this is just a different way of doing things. In this style, you were going to get, whoops, you're going to get something. No, it's not what I wanted. This every turn, you're going to be working your way through these events, and you're only going to get nothings when essentially you've encountered everything. In the another way you could do this, I'm not sure how you'd want to do this, and then you know, let's see, how am I going to put this? If you want to have nothing space, nothing time, that's going to be that is maybe now it's like we've moved the problem a little bit, which is okay. We got this thing, we've got all this stuff going on, which is great, and this stuff accounts for anything we want to put in there, whether it's an event, a location, because we want to put there's ruins in there. Okay, great. You just put it on the table. They found ruins, and it's the ruins of blah blah that they can explore or not. Faction creature activity is in here. Okay, great. But what if we just want to have nothing? Now, one thing you can do is this is where you could put kind of not those environmental effects. So there's a cold wind blowing through the trees, or you could have like a pool, like this one here, a quiet pool of still dark water. It's just kind of it's there. There's nothing really. It's just maybe there's something weird with it. I think people will take it to be something weird, like, oh, wait a minute, it's cold, still dark water. Like, is it a magic pool where it's going to turn us into shrimp if we drink it or something, or what is it like? I don't know. Could be whatever you want. There's probably I'm thinking of like maybe there's a way to kind of to manipulate this a little bit to get, and that's what I was wondering. Like if you add in a second die, does the second die maybe give you something? Could you you could maybe manipulate that second die or use the second die to say, oh, if the second die is this, then maybe you get nothing, I'm not sure. You could have the calls, you could have it happen again. Like maybe the reverberating sound of chopping, maybe you hear the reverberating sound again. It doesn't go off the board necessarily. You hear it again. Or the whistling bird call, or another refuse pile, or another pool of still dark water. You could probably determine as a GM what you want. But that it's a different problem. It's probably the problem that people would be less conservative, because I think most people, the issue for most people is not that there's too much content. It's generating the content, like that they feel like there's a deficit, or that they're having to, like the kind of like, I don't want there to be dead space, which is kind of like a long time, ages ago, when they talk about people starting with these ginormous hex maps they try to fill. A lot of it is like, well, how do I fill all these hexes, and what do I do with all these empty hexes? And hey, part one of it is you can just leave them blank. They don't have to be anything there. But another thing is to start smaller so that you can have a more full area, or you just have like, hey, these are, or you could bring in something else. That's where you can say, maybe you have just a bunch of other things out there, like just generic locations, whatever things that happen, and then you could fill in the generic one. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder now if rolling 2 dice and then doing something with the 2 dice, that second die becomes almost a control die, if you will, where you could say like, okay, if the second die is larger than the first die, there might be something interesting, but I don't know I'd have to look at the print, because I wouldn't want it to get too rare to, have to figure that part out a little bit. I'm not sure how that would work. Or maybe you could choose one thing that I think we ended up, when we were playing Ironsworn, and I think they even mention it as actually official thing. So you're rolling 2 dice for the omens. I think all the omens. Let me see if I bring up. Do I have? Let me see. Here we go. I think in Ironsworn, if we go to the oracles, I said omens, didn't I? Yeah, so you end up with a D1. They do doing D100. And one of the things I think they mention is that if you roll 1 and it makes no sense, which obviously it doesn't work for summon because it's 0/0, and some of these aren't, 99. Okay, but for a lot of them, what do I keep? Like 54. So you can go and say, okay, move. But and move's a pretty, maybe a better example because all these verbs are going to be pretty good. If so, looking at, say, theme, right? So you go, okay, we got theme of death, and say the context is a child's birthday party. And you can still roll with the theme of death. And you look at it metaphorically, metaphysically, symbolically, okay, whatever. But you go, you know what? We're all not feeling that one right now. But the one thing you do is you can flip it over and say, well, what's 91? And you go to 91 and you get pride. And you go, pride. That one's a lot more meaningful. So I wonder if you could roll 2 dice and use the first one, but then if it doesn't work, or so you can use the second one, right? So you kind of give you a little flexibility to flip-flop it around. Maybe that's interesting. You could even have a sense of if you use the left one or the right one, what the tone or something changes. That could be interesting too. There might be something there to rolling the 2 dice. Maybe it makes it a little bit too thinky. So I'm just wondering, okay, we rolled 1 and we got the rumors have chopping, and we get okay, now we roll. So we roll 1 and 2. We can pick one of these, but maybe there's a different tone or something. I don't know. There's probably something we could do with that. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I'll have to think. Things I'll need to think about. I may stream on the main channel today because I am by myself and I didn't stream yesterday when I meant to. I'm not sure. I think I need to take a bit of a break, do some things. I haven't had any lunch yet. I think I'm wondering whether I should eat lunch or just kind of do early dinner thing. Kraga says maybe layered. Yeah, there's different things. Like one, you could just do it to make a D66 table, and then you've got 36 possibilities. Is that too much? But you could also have multiples. Like you could have a thing where a thing can be more than 31 through 30, whatever. Like you can split it up any way you like, which might be a way to do it too. Just gives you more potential possibilities. I'll have to think about it. I'll have to think about it because the one thing I like sometimes with I haven't really seen people do this too much, but I've done it in my brain where I look at it and say, okay, we've got the tens number. So each one of those tens numbers can have a different vibe to it. So, for example, let's say I was going with, let's say your 5 senses plus your intuition, right? So 6 senses. So maybe make 11 through 16 is sight. 21 through 26 is hearing. 31 through 36 is taste. And you can group them all together. You still have a D36 list, but you can look at it and say, okay, I'm going to make these 6 about this. I'm going to make these 6 about that. And you could do something similar by saying, okay, if we make this and say we're going to have 6, right? Robin Hood, the sheriff, local folk, ogre, unicorn, and let's just say like environmental, that's 6. Then I could say each one of those tables, each one of those slots within that D6 is going to be that. So that you kind of have this, okay, I'm building up. So the nice thing I like about it is I'm building a D66, that 36 table. And it seems like a lot. Like, oh my gosh, I got to come up with 36 things. That's kind of crazy. But I'm like, well, I only have to come up with 6 sight sensations. I only have to come up with 6 sound sensations. I only have to come up with 6 smell things. I only have to come up with 6 feel, right? Tactile. So it makes it manageable, and you can kind of look in your head and organize it, but then you end up with a D66 table. And then, of course, once you've got it, if you want to sort them in a different way, then you can. I've been sorting, the way these are kind of sorted is that kind of like, traces, signs, the thing, or to the, however many you kind of want to have around the line, like, so you can kind of have that as well. I'm wondering whether to put that we should have some kind of thing, because I definitely want to have people, I want to let people have, and maybe that's why having it in, say, 3 columns, even though we're doing D66, by having the columns separately, you could move across and say, if you're investigating, go across. If you're staying together, go. I'll have to look at that too, because that might be another thing to say. You're going across so that, you have 66 or 36. So we'll do like 12 3 times. But each time you're going across, that's kind of the same. I'm going to have to play around with that because I feel like that's a good thing. But like I said, I'm going to take a break. I may be back here, maybe back on the channel, and who knows if I get kind of if I get called away, I apologize. I'll probably do something tomorrow too. I should be playing in a game tomorrow early afternoon, so that'll be fun. I'm supposed to play in a deep carbon observatory. Well, I've read bits of it, but I've never read the whole. I don't know if I maybe flipped through the whole. I don't think I read the whole thing. Deep carbon observatory using Shadow Dark, I think. So that should be interesting, fun. I've never actually played Shadow Dark before, so that'll be good. If I have a chance to talk about that before my family gets back Sunday night, I might. But anyway, you might, if you're around, keep a look on, and I might pop up again here on the other channel. We shall see. But yeah, I'm going to take a break, maybe get some food, ruminate on some things, and then we'll be back potentially. Anyhow, thanks for hanging out. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever I'm watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.